You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast on the Rocky Mountain Rooftop Network, the Rockies affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I am your host, Skyler Timmins, and joined once again is another person that will audition for the voice of Mario in the video games now, Evan Lang.
It is a me. Let's a go. Woohoo.
Sign him up for a $1 billion movie. That's why we pay him the big bucks here.
I stomp on turtles.
For good reason. They keep stealing his girlfriend, who
I don't know,
doesn't
Chris Pratt,
reciprocate at all.
I know people still make fun of Chris Pratt's performance in the Mario movie, but it was fine. He did fine.
Yes. For that entire movie, everybody did A-okay, except Cranky Kong, who sounded terrible.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Hey, I'm cranky over here.
Like they could have just gotten like
Fred Armisen could have done any other voice. And
or they
instead
could
he
have
chose
just gotten the Larry David. They could have just asked Larry David to voice him.
Yeah!
Instead of having Fred Armisen do kind of a half-baked Larry David impression.
Who really needs to blow his nose. Fun stuff. But we're not here to talk about the Mario movie. Our episodes always start off weird. Not too shabby. But also, farewell and congrats to Charles Martinet, who is retiring as the voice of Mario in the video games. Good stuff. But Evan, before we get into Rockies, do you like football?
I do. I do like football.
Do you like nachos?
I also like nachos.
How about you come over to my house and we watch the game and have some nachos? This is a Simpsons reference for you. But Evan, what if I told you?
It took me a minute. This is the episode where George H.W. Bush moves in and him and Homer become like arch enemies. But then he moves out, and then at the end, Gerald Ford moves in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
And they become fast friends. But Evan, what if I told you that you could go watch your favorite NFL team at their week 1 game of the season?
I would ask you if Gerald Ford is going to be there.
No, he will not, because he is not around anymore. But there's still a way for you to go to and attend your favorite team's week 1 game. Thanks to our proud sponsors of the Fans First Sports Network, they're giving away 4 free tickets to the Week 1 NFL game of your choice, up to $5,000. That's a credible value here. And the rules to enter, Evan, are simple. And for fans, you can go to contest.fansfirstsports.com. Again, that's contest.fansfirstsports.com and fill out a form, appropriate information. Once you've done that, you've been officially registered to win the 4 free tickets to any Week 1 NFL game. So a pretty awesome opportunity by those who make this podcast possible or keeping us going, doing this awesome thing as football season right around the corner, and people are gearing up for that. And pretty awesome. Contest ends on September 4th. You can go enter for your shot at seeing your favorite team in action. You can go watch Russell Wilson and the Broncos and hope they can figure things out this year. Or you can be like Evan and go follow the Packers.
I follow the Broncos too.
It works. But you
it
can
does
enter.
Because they rarely play each other.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a fantastic opportunity, and we're so grateful to the folks at Fan First Sports Network for giving us a platform, and also this is just a really cool thing to do with how expensive NFL tickets can be, especially for the home opener or the week 1 opener.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a pretty awesome thing. Again, contest.fansfirstsports.com and fill out the appropriate information. Contest ends on September 4th. So do it as soon as you hear this episode. Go ahead and go do that and enter in for those free tickets, which is pretty awesome. I've never been to an NFL game. Fortunately, I don't think we can win. But Rusty Shackelford definitely could. But wink. Yeah, awesome thing. And definitely go enter that. And football season right around the corner. So awesome opportunity there.
And you don't even have to bring us along if you win.
Yeah. But it'd be cool if you did. I got nothing going on. Alrighty. We'll both turn into Larry David.
Good luck, everybody. Thanks for listening. And if you enter, let us know if you win.
Yeah, let us know. All right, Evan. Should we talk about the Rockies?
Must we?
Yes, that's what we're paid for. It's been a rough past week since we last spoke because the Rockies keep losing in the late game, in the 8th inning and later. And it's been pretty rough, and it's been epitomized by the Rockies, or Bud Black's quote, "We aren't losing, we're getting beat." And that sums it up better than anything that we've seen in the past week, as the Rockies are in the midst of a 5-game losing streak after struggling at home in a couple of games against the Diamondbacks. They imploded quite a bit against the White Sox to fail to sweep them. Tampa Bay, they get swept after having many opportunities to win. And then first game, as of recording, against the Orioles, they again lose in the 8th inning. And later, it's been rough go of it, Evan. And what's been the problem? Bullpen implosions. What's been nagging this team over this past week?
So before I get into that, I have a fun fact to share about this. So the Rockies, having lost 5 straight and going into the 8th inning in all 5 of those games with either the lead or the tie, it is the first team to do that since the Montreal Expos from May 26th to May 30th in 1970. So it has been 50 plus years since this has happened. And
it's been rough.
It's been pretty bad. And part of it is the bullpen, and part of it is just the Rockies' failure to really put things away, where the offense will pull ahead and then just kind of stop. And we're also getting really not particularly competitive 9th innings after that 8th inning or 8th inning or later sort of implosion where we lose the lead or we lose the tie. And I don't know if that's because, with those consistent, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it here, with how consistent it's been that something implodes that late in the game. I don't know if it's that they're just getting like the wind sucked out of their sails and morale just evaporates or what, but a really good example is so the game 1 against the Baltimore Orioles, they lose the lead, they go into the 9th inning. Okay, let's go. Instead of Alaris Montero hitting, he is taken out of the game for Jurickson Profar, who promptly strikes out on a couple pitches. Immediately afterwards, Harold Castro is brought in to pinch hit, who lazily grounds out. That's 2 outs. And then right after that, 3rd out, game over. Quick 1-2-3 inning, they barely put up a fight. And that's been sort of the case for all of these games, where in the 8th or the 9th, things just fall apart. And for that Rays series, we got walked off that one time, but it just really feels like we implode, and then all the will to fight just sort of vanishes. And we also need to talk about the bullpen in that regard, because
they're the reason for all the implosions at the moment.
The bullpen has been struggling so much in these late innings. You've got Justin Lawrence, who's blown 5 save opportunities. Brent Suter has really been struggling. And the main thing that I want to focus on for this is actually not unexpected with how much this bullpen has been used. The Rockies have one of the most overused bullpens in all of baseball. By innings, the Rockies have the 5th most innings used by relief pitchers in the entire league. And if you look at the primary suspects, the guys who have pitched a lot, we have 2 pitchers who have 50 or more outings. We have, I believe, 6 who have had all 40 plus, and even guys who are relatively new, like Matt Cook. Matt Cook came in and he established himself and he was pitching really well. And now he's been used 26 times and he's only been up for like a couple months. And we're looking at this and we're seeing, in my opinion, the results of an incredibly overused and overtaxed bullpen, where we are now late in the season. There's about 5-6 weeks left of the season, and our bullpen is out of gas. And it really is, in particular, these 5 and 6 guys who are all getting overused a lot. Like last night, they could have given an opportunity to shine to Evan Justice, who just got called up, or multiple other guys in this bullpen, just to give some folks a break. We have Jake Bird, who has thrown 72 innings in 55 outings. We have Justin Lawrence, who's thrown 61 innings in 53 outings. Brent Suter, 59-47. Daniel Bard, 43-44. It's not an ideal situation. And you even look at like some of these guys that we have who have made so many outings are guys that aren't even on the team anymore. You have Pierce Johnson, who racked up 43 appearances with the team before he was traded. That's wild. That is so much use out of a bullpen arm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and think a lot of it is part of that overuse, and part of that is more so the overexposure, where then there's more video, there's more scouting against these guys, and now these guys you have to use your bullpen over the course of a season, and guys have to figure out how to be, have that longevity when they're getting used as often as they are. And because the starting pitching's been getting better, at least giving us length in the 5th or 6th inning. But it's the guys that you need to secure the back end that aren't getting it done. And part of it's against some good hitting teams. And part of it's just not executing, where Brent Suter, he's not the hardest thrower in baseball. Yeah, he works quick and he gets his ground balls, but still, if teams jump on him, know that plan that, okay, he's going to work quick and he's going to throw us fastballs, sinkers over the plate, we can be aggressive. And that's what I think we're seeing teams doing is they're prepared. They're ready to hit when these relievers are coming in, where Suter's coming in and immediately he's getting hit. He's getting singled to death, or he's getting hit hard. Baltimore, they sent a deep fly ball out there, and then they finally connect on one to send it out for a home run to take the lead. So it's teams that they're against good teams, some good hitting teams right now. Diamondbacks are a good hitting team, Tampa Bay, and the Orioles this year. And they're having that plan of attack, and I think that's what we're seeing is teams are ready to hit because they know what's coming from our relievers. And they're probably out of gas, and there's just that overexposure. But what I see is just our guys aren't executing. They don't have, other teams have a better game plan against us, and we just can't close it out. We can't outthink the hitters we're facing because the Rockies, they don't strike out a lot of guys. And that's pretty evident. You need guys that can come in and strike guys out. Why did our top of the ninth against the Orioles fare so terribly? because it was the bottom of the order facing Felix Bautista, who's pumping 102, 100 to 102 every pitch. What can you do against that? Except wait for him to blow out his arm, throw into Michael Tolia, who promptly strikes out when he has to flip to right hand.
Yeah, that was rough. Felix Bautista is having such an incredible season, and all of a sudden, he leaves that outing having just blown out his arm. It sounds like he's going to go on the injured list. So, best of luck to him. Hopefully, he has a speedy recovery and it's nothing too serious. But you're absolutely right in that regard. In that, the Rockies. How often do we hear in the broadcast the excuse of, "Oh, the Rockies are going to struggle against this guy because he's a guy they've never seen before"?
Yeah, where that's what scouting is for, Evan.
Yeah, and it's not like the Orioles are particularly overexposed to Brent Suter.
Yeah,
they haven't seen him at all this year,
or like hardly ever, because he was in the with the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah,
so
before the schedule change.
Yeah, and I like exactly where that excuse. Oh, we've never seen this guy before. Yeah, that's the most of baseball. They hardly ever see anybody. Unless you play within that division, you see a guy maybe once a year.
Yeah.
Whereas in the in the National League West, we've seen Clayton Kershaw. We see him several times a year. So you can't use that excuse. The organization, you have to have a game plan. You have to scout in advance and be prepared. Have a game plan against the guys you're going to be facing. And we see that. Look at Tampa Bay. Were they pounding the ball when they had that gigantic inning? No, they were stringing together hits until that big bop came. A grand slam for that one guy's first career home run. They come up with that plan to hit, and they're aggressive, simple, just put bat on the ball, boom, single to right field, boom, single down the line, boom, double down the line. Set it up, draw a walk, grand slam, You're losing even more.
Taking advantage of those mistakes. And it really is the Rockies right now also. We were talking about Felix Bautista coming in and blowing the gas just straight past our hitters. The Rockies are the only team in all of Major League Baseball to not throw a single pitch from any pitcher of 99 miles per hour or higher this season.
Oof.
We just have no velocity and strikeout guys. We don't have any. Daniel Bard used to be that guy, and you mentioned that grand slam. I'm kind of worried that we just saw Daniel Bard's career just end with that grand slam from Osleivis Basabe, because that was brutal, and he has just not looked at all the same for most of this year. And Daniel Bard used to be one of our high velocity guys. He was throwing 99 plus last season, and he hasn't been this year. And we don't really have any gas throwers. Herman Marquez, a couple seasons ago, you would see him occasionally tick up towards the end of his outings, but he didn't really have any of that this year, and now he's out with Tommy John. Justin Lawrence used to be able to, probably still could, he could hit 102 on his fastball, but he intentionally stepped back the velocity in order to focus more on command, which is a good thing. But then the Rockies don't have anybody to replace that velocity.
Mm-hmm. It's like the velocity, and then it's like a give and take. When a Rockies pitcher has velocity, they have little to no control, like we saw with Justin Lawrence when he was throwing that gas. But now walks are still a problem with control, so walks are leading to hits, and then hits are leading to runs. And so they're just dealing with so much traffic there at the back end of that bullpen, where it's it's weird, the ebb and flow of a season where we couldn't trust the starting rotation. But now starting rotations, like, they're picking up their slack. They've been carrying their weight, giving us a chance. The young guys, we won't dive in too much of it for another conversation due to time, but the young guys have been competing, good at bats. They're staying in games. They've been digging out of holes. They've been giving us opportunities to be in the lead in that 8th and 9th inning, 7th, 8th, 9th. But then they're doing just enough with this young core and this young group, but then the bullpen's coming in and giving up 4, 5, 6 runs in the 8th and 9th innings,
Yeah.
puts the game out of hand, or just that big blow, like you mentioned, bottom of the 8th, you give up a huge blow. It's really hard to come back from that in the top of the 9th, as the visiting team giving up that lead, and then you have your bottom of the order with their closer coming in. It's a tough recipe. There's really nothing the Rockies could have really done unless they got really lucky and sent Elias Diaz up there and told him it was the All-Star game again.
Yeah.
So it's so many factors that are going in where it's overworked bullpen, overexposure, perhaps not prepping enough, or just not having the best quality of preparation coming into those in situations and stuff. So we're really good through 7 innings, and then these last couple of innings over the past week have just been brutal.
Yeah,
to watch and deflating.
And it's so tough because you think about it and you look and you go, well, we're having a really competitive first 7 innings against some really good teams in the Tampa Bay Rays and the Baltimore Orioles. Baltimore Orioles are an 80-win team so far this season versus the Rockies are an 80-loss team so far this season. But then after you get past the 7th inning, things just completely collapse. And the last thing I want to talk about with this before we move on is just circling back to that overexposure and overwork. I want you to look at some of the pitchers with the most appearances in baseball compared to how many innings they've thrown. So the most used reliever right now in all of MLB is Matt Brash of the Seattle Mariners. He has made 63 appearances. How many innings has he thrown, do you think?
63.
55. Second most used reliever in MLB is Houston's Brian Abreu with 61 outings. How many innings do you think he's thrown?
54.
He's thrown 60. But you're on the right track with the next guy, Arizona's Miguel Castro, the former Rocky, who's thrown 52 innings in 60 appearances. And most of the other guys on this most used relievers list sort of follow that, where the amount of innings that they are pitching are either less than or equal to the amount of outings that they have had. And then you tick over and you look at the Rockies relievers. Jake Bird, in 55 outings, has thrown 72 innings. Justin Lawrence, in 53 outings, has thrown 61 innings. And Brent Suter, in 47 outings, has thrown 59 innings. Where, by innings pitched, Jake Bird has the most in all of baseball right now for relievers. And Justin Lawrence is tied for the 10th most. Despite the fact that they are both not even top 25 in appearances right now.
It's what bullpen starting rotation not doing its job, and bullpen guys having to carry multiple innings. It's just been an unfortunate week, and because like we said, we're seeing the starting rotation do some better things. We're seeing the young guys in the offense still a lot to work with, but they've competed. They've put together competitive games to keep them close, and then it just gets out of hand from those last couple of innings, and they can't close it out. And yeah, I agree with that sentiment that Bud Black shared. We're not losing, we're just getting beat. And there's some truth in that sentiment where the Rockies are snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And they're just finding ways to lose games, unfortunately. And we'll appreciate Brent Suter, despite struggling, he's owning up to it. And he's like, we just got to keep going. His commitment to the bullpen team. Yeah, they know what's going on. They know what they're struggling with.
Yeah.
And they're going to do everything they can to try and figure it out too.
And that is something I really like about this team right now, is we've seen in some articles posted by Thomas Harding that this is a team that's really trying to, where these players are really trying to pick each other up and have everybody's back. Where earlier in the week we had an article from Thomas Harding where he's talking about Hensley Mullins is holding these team meetings for the hitters where they can discuss like their feelings and talk about how they feel things are going and things that are bothering them, and then their teammates can pick each other up. And we're seeing that from Brent Suter, and we're seeing that from Justin Lawrence and other guys in the bullpen of trying to pick each other up and have each other's backs despite the fact that they are struggling. And I really do like that. That is such an incredibly important thing. And it's got to be very hard on the players to be having a season this difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that they all have each other's backs. And it is tough because we are seeing, like you said, positives in so many places. Kyle Freeland, his start against Baltimore was pretty good. And Austin Gomber's been fantastic over his last few starts. And the rotation is doing what it can, especially guys like Freeland and Gomber. But then the offense is also doing what it can, especially from the young guys, Nolan Jones, Brenton Doyle's incredible outfield defense. Charlie Blackmon's been a spark plug in the offense, but things just aren't coming together to seal the deal.
Mm-hmm. It's been rough, but we'll keep on trucking along. But we'll go ahead and take a quick break here. And when we come back, we got some more news about a possible reunion about Charlie Blackmon and the Rockies for next season. So stick around. We'll be right back here on Affected by Altitude. Hello and welcome back here on Affected by Altitude. Thanks for sticking with us, as always, through our breaks. And Evan, last week we had talked about the importance of Charlie Blackmon and just what he means to the team and how we'd be okay with him coming back for one more season to Chuck's final ride. Well, sounds like the Rockies and Charlie Blackmon are mulling over that same kind of idea where there's mutual interest between Charlie Blackmon and the Colorado Rockies to reunite for one more season if things come together. Talking to Patrick Saunders, Charlie Blackmon said, "I think I've been able to bounce back well from the hand injury, and I think we need a good mix of older players like myself to help the young players with adjustments and things like that. I think if you have just a team of young guys and they are all trying to go through it together at the same time, it can be tough. So I think veterans can help them make adjustments." So Charlie Blackmon, Rockies are his first choice. Your thoughts on this, Evan?
So first of all, that's pretty much exactly what we said last week, is that you need a guy like Charlie Blackmon to be there and be a leader for a very young team. But I'd be, like we said, I'd be more than happy to have him back. And it makes me happy to see that it sounds like that feeling is mutual, that Chuck wants to keep playing and that he wants to come back at least for one more season. He spoke with Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post about all of this. And, I think for the Rockies, who after next year are going to have a pretty low payroll in terms of other teams in Major League Baseball, I think it would be kind of a no-brainer to bring Chuck back. There is going to be a little bit of a squeeze on where he can play, especially with all these rookies and young guys coming around. But that's kind of what we've been doing with him, where since he's come back, I will argue that Chuck really hasn't been taking away playing time from any of the young guys, where he's either in right field occasionally. He was in right field again, game one against the Orioles, or he's DH. And when he's not in right field, you can put Nolan Jones or Michael Tolia or whomever in right field. And when he is in right field, you can put one of those guys in the DH slot. So I would argue that, that's not really been a problem for Charlie Blackmon. It's like we've argued earlier in this episode and other parts of the season. It's guys like Jurickson Profar and Harold Castro right now who are leeching most of the playing time from younger guys, though we've seen Harold Castro less and less since Brendan Rodgers returned. Jurickson Profar has still appeared in, it's like 17 or 18 of the games played since the trade deadline out of 21 or 22 games. And that's weird, especially when he's not presenting a positive value on the team like Charlie Blackmon is. Charlie Blackmon is still providing positive value to this team right now, especially at the plate. He's got a couple triples since he came back. He's hitting home runs. He looks good. He looks quick. His outfield defense isn't great, which it hasn't been, but you can tell he's putting in the effort. He tried his damn hardest to rob that home run yesterday, where he took a good route on the ball and he got up on the wall to try and grab it, but he just couldn't get to it, especially because he got a little bit tangled up in some of the material that's on the outfield wall at Camden Yards out there. But I was talking about it. I was like, man, you didn't get it, but damn good effort there, Chuck, because you tried. You put your all into trying to get it at least. And that is, I think, what's so important about having a guy like Charlie Blackmon. And other players have talked about this. Nolan Jones, for example, talking about how when Chuck is here, he's never not giving it 100%. And I think that's a really important presence to have around a young team getting younger. And I agree with Chuck that, next year, when a lot of these contracts are going to be off the books and this team's going to get even younger, you can't just have it be nothing but super young guys trying to all figure it out at the same time. I do agree with that. You need some veterans. And I think Charlie Blackmon is the veteran that you want to have. Of any other guy in this position group, I would choose Charlie Blackmon over any of them. Not just for what he means to the organization, not just for what he means to the fans, but for what he means to his teammates and how he helps pick them up, helps them adjust, and helps teach them as a mentor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they said if things work out, they'd love to have him back. So it just depends on the money. But Charlie Blackmon said Rockies are his first choice, which is good to hear. So hopefully they can figure something out. Otherwise, we may see Charlie Blackmon go the route of Carlos Gonzalez and just kind of fade away into obscurity with some other team over the final year or two of his career, which would be really sad to see, which is the sad thing with Cargo, who then went to Cleveland and Chicago and just ended his career in 2020 with the Seattle Mariners and didn't even make their summer roster.
Yeah, that was tough. And it also is, think of how many guys over the last few years have said, we want to stay in Colorado. This is our first choice. And then they're not here anymore.
Thing is, Charlie Blackmon has the advantage of being a 37-year-old designated hitter. So that's in our corner, at least. He's not looking at the entire future of his career ahead of him still. But hopefully we'll see. We'll see what happens. And he's getting paid around $15 million this year. You'd expect maybe there's one of two things, like we mentioned. They extend a qualifying offer and he accepts it, and you're paying him the 18, 19 million, which it's quite a bit for Charlie. Or you bring him back on a 1-year deal, maybe less than 15, which we can think about. But it's awesome that they're having those conversations and there's that mutual interest, and hopefully they can figure something out. Maybe they sign him before the season's end. But we'll hopefully
an extension.
Charlie Blackmon in purple again next year. We're hoping maybe we can see number 19 for one final ride.
I think what it's going to be is you're either going to sign him to a 1-year deal for, my guess is between 10 and 15 million, or they give him that qualifying offer, which is more than he's going to get anywhere else, of 18 and 19 million, as a way to, if it really is his last season, sort of reward him for everything he's done for this franchise and for this organization. Because that does happen, where you're not necessarily paying them for what their performance is going to be that year, but it's more of a reward for everything that they have done. And that's sort of part of, that contract. For example, Steven Strasburg just announced that he's going to retire at the end of the season. The 2019 World Series MVP for the Washington Nationals, who's just unfortunately really struggled with some really miserable injuries. And that contract was kind of frowned upon when he got it, but it was also a reward for being such an important part of that team that did bring them finally to the promised land. A World Series MVP, a World Series win, forgives a lot of things. And that's what part of that contract was, is that they were rewarding him for everything he had done for the team up until that point as well. And, of course, the contract that Charlie gets for 1 year or whatever is never going to be anywhere near that big. But you can look at it as, very similar to his contract when he was 32, and we extended him for that 6-year deal with the options, is that it was also a reward for everything he had done up until that point, in addition to his future performance.
Yep. Contracts are based on rewards and what you've done in the past, as opposed to what you will do in the future. Well, even though that's part of it, but it's more so what you've done in the past. So we'll see what happens. One more thing here in this segment that we'll touch on. The Rockies called up Evan Justice and DFA'd Justin. I've still never figured out how to say his name. Brule. Justin Brule. He was DFA'd. That was the left-handed reliever that the Rockies bought from the Dodgers at the trade deadline. But he didn't really do much, kind of struggled. But so they've called up Evan Justice. And Evan, this is a guy that you're pretty high on, you're excited about. And just kind of give us the lowdown on Evan Justice. What's the verdict on Evan Justice? See what I did there?
I love Evan Justice for, well, one obvious reason.
You're a fan of justice and the law.
Big. And also, what does that say?
Lang.
Right next to it?
Even.
Close. Close enough. Is that for us Evans, got to stick together. And it's really cool to see that there is an Evan up on the major league roster now for the Rockies, which is something I have thought about, dreamed about pretty much my entire life at this point. Though, of course, in my wildest fantasies, it's me, but in real life, But Evan Justice is really interesting because he's had just a fantastic minor league career after a really tough start to his professional career. I wrote about him a little bit when he got promoted to AAA Albuquerque about a month and a half ago, where his NC State Wolfpack, they got eliminated from the College World Series due to a COVID-19 outbreak. But then he played in the Arizona Complex League in 2021. But then in 2022, he missed the entire season because he had this lingering shoulder strain that he couldn't shake. But now he's up in the big leagues after not that much time in the minor leagues. His ascent was really, for lack of a better term, meteoric in terms of just rocketing through the farm system. Because remember, 2021 played 3 games in the Arizona Complex League. 2022 did not play at all. In 2023, he started in Spokane and just rocketed up. He only played 10 games for High A Spokane. Promoted to Hartford, AA, played 15 games. Promoted to AAA Albuquerque, 13 games. He's only thrown 41 2/3 innings this season of minor league baseball and has an overall ERA of 3.46. Now, his ERA in Albuquerque, little bloated because it's, one, not a terribly big sample size, and 2, pitching in the PCL is really, really hard, where ERA is a little bit negligible. You don't want to completely ignore it, but then you instead look at, he had a 0 ERA in Spokane and an ERA of just 3.38 in Hartford. And in Hartford, most of that ERA came for like 1 or 2 games, where he had one really bad outing against the Altoona Curve in late May, where he gave up 4 earned runs. Before that, he had only given up 1 earned run. And after that, he did not give up a single earned run. So even then, his ERA kind of fools you because it looks higher than it actually legitimately should be, or how it would be indicative of his performance. But he's got a good mid-90s fastball that averages around 95. So, good higher velocity fastball than a lot of the other relievers on this Rockies team right now, with kind of a weird deceptive arm slot. And he's a left-hander, which we always need more of. We need more lefties. But then he's also got a good arsenal of breaking pitches. His best one is his slider, low to mid-80s slider. But, man, AAA hitters could not do anything against that slider. They had something like a 62% whiff rate against that pitch when he was with the Albuquerque Isotopes. Evan Justice is awesome. I'm really, really happy to have him up on this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's always nice to have another lefty. Lefty depth options. That's something the Rockies have always struggled with, especially during the Bud Black era. And between Jeff Bridich and Bill Schmidt's been doing better, just getting more lefty arms for that bullpen. And it's good to have a guy that can throw a little harder than, say, a Brent Suter. And Brill just wasn't getting it done, just kind of ineffective. And he's a good depth option. And so hopefully he can stick around. The Rockies keep him in the system somehow. Maybe, hopefully they didn't overpay for him. But not too shabby to add a guy like Evan Justice, who, he's gonna have to work on his walks and get more consistent. He's shown that he can, like this season, down in Double-A and down in Spokane. Albuquerque, against better hitters, he's gonna have to work on that still, and nail that down a bit more. But still, an intriguing arm when he's on and can pound the zone. That's what we need. Guys that can pound the zone with some command their fastball, command velocity in the zone, and throw strikes and get it past guys when they can. And it's going to be exciting to see, hopefully, by the time you hear this on Monday, that he's debuted and that he's thrown some pitches. Would be nice to see. But congrats to Evan Justice making it to the big leagues finally. And hopefully he can pan out, get him some more time, and he can join that core of Lucas Gilbreth, maybe Brent Suter again, over there as the lefties in the bullpen going forward for the future. But if nothing else, you get a look at him now and see if he pans out or if he fits into your plans for the future. But
yeah, and it's a bummer that Justin Brill, he struggled while he was up here with us. Hopefully he's gonna clear and we can get him back down to Albuquerque, because I don't think Brill's a bad pitcher. I think he just struggled in the limited time that he had with the Rockies this year, and he's worth keeping around to see. Like you said, worth keeping around to see if we can get some value out of him. And if not, at the very least, we didn't pay that much for him, so
worth a shot. But we're gonna go ahead and take one more break here as we head into our final segment, Evan, but don't go anywhere here on Affected by Altitude. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody, and welcome back here to Affected by Altitude for our one more segment here, where we're near the end of August. We're in the final month or so of the season. This is the point in the season where when you call up a prospect or a rookie, they will not have enough days of service time and will maintain their rookie status going into the 2024 season. So you're starting to see a lot more top prospects getting called up by organizations. The Cardinals have been calling up guys. Some of the teams that are well out of it are calling up guys. And then some teams that are on the cusp, battling for the playoffs, they'll call it maybe the top guys that can really contribute down the line. But it's call-up season. And so we just want to ask, Evan, who do we want to see get called up for the final month or so of the season to get some action? I can think of one guy that you're probably going to talk about right now.
It's call-up season. It's cup of coffee season.
That's baseball. You can buy that in our spreadshirt shop.
No, it really is. So roster expansion is about a week away at this point at time of recording. September 1st, the rosters expand from 26 to 28. And first of all, in order to facilitate this, there are two very obvious candidates to be DFA'd to clear space on the 40-man roster for two call-ups. And it's Jurickson Profar and it's Harold Castro. Get it done. Because that way we can really take advantage of that. We can call up DFAing those two guys. We not only clear space on the 40-man roster to call up two guys, but then we can call up an additional two who are already on the 40-man to give them sort of an extended look. because that is really what these final two seasons are all about. The Rockies are not going anywhere. We have 80 losses. We're likely to hit 100 losses. We'll talk about that in a minute. So now it's time to look at the kids. And the first guy, you all know who I'm going to pick, is Hunter Goodman. Hunter Goodman needs to be up here yesterday, honestly. He has been incredible in AAA Albuquerque so far this season, where honestly, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe this here. I don't think he's, despite the limited sample size, I think he's proving that he doesn't actually have anything to prove at that level. I think you might as well just call him up now and see what happens. In 15 games with the Albuquerque Isotopes, he's hitting 371, 418, 903 slugging percentage with an OPS of 1.321. In those 15 games, he has 9 home runs, 2 doubles, and 33 RBIs. Yes, he struck out a decent chunk. He's striking out at least once a game. He's got 17 strikeouts in those 15 games, 62 at bats. But Goodman is a pure power hitter. He's going to get he's probably the closest we've got to a three true outcomes hitter, where if he gets a hold of that ball, he is going to crush it. I want to see that.
Yeah, he'd be the good one to pick up. And he's got a little bit of that versatility. He can catch. He can play first base. He can play left field. He's put out some pretty good highlights in the outfield there in left field. And that would be nice. And I think he's shown more of just an instinct for hitting than, say, an Montero, who we know the power Montero has, but he just hasn't been able to make the adjustments at the big league level to really tap into that. Whereas, looking at Hunter Goodman, I think he has that potential more to make those adjustments where he's going to jump on the pitches that he knows he can hit. And he's still going to strike out, a good chunk here, but has more tendency maybe to draw a walk as well. So he would be a really good one to see. And then just to see if he fits into your plans for 2024 at all, or for his future. Because this is the time of season you start sifting through guys, give them a head start either for the next season, or hey, this guy's not really, we don't see him in our plans, we don't really see him in our lineup for next year, or have a need or space for him on this roster. Then you can trade them. You can look at trading guys or what you can. But Hunter Goodman, I think he's on that cusp. He's ready to get that call up among prospects who will get that debut, because I think Sean Bouchard probably gets called back up once rosters expand. And again, this goes back to, you need to do something with Profar and Castro, because Bouchard needs to come up, and you don't want to just fill one of those 2 extra roster spots with a guy who's already been around. And then, maybe a position player and a pitcher would fill up those 2 final spots. So if you want more room, like you said, you got to get rid of a couple of those veterans who have either come up with injuries for them or DFA them or whatever.
Yeah, because you DFA Profar, and then you have left field open for Sean Bouchard and Hunter Goodman.
So that's a couple of those guys. There's also some pitchers. Chase Anderson, they keep talking about him doing rehab and starting with the Rockies again. Maybe he does, but some of those guys like him and Chris Flexen, do you really need them down the stretch for the rest of the season? Type of thing. But Hunter Goodman, I think, is top of our list. I think pitcher-wise, I like to see Riley Pint get called back up and give him a legitimate chance of more work. Pitching there the one outing that he had was just kind of faced a couple of hitters, didn't go great, and then they immediately sent him back down the next day. I'd like to see him get called up and finally just give him a chance. Let him run through the month of September, because like I said, that bullpen's spent. Put a fresh arm in there at the big league level and get him a chance. He's earned it, and just make that whole story come full circle if he doesn't do well, at least the stories come full circle type of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Riley Pint really hasn't been given much of a shake up here at the big leagues. He had that one outing. He got called up a second time at some point and then was here for like a day, didn't pitch, and then got sent back down.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple guys who are doing rehab assignments right now with AAA who I don't know if you should bring them back to the team. And that includes Chase Anderson and also includes, unfortunately, Matt Carasidi. Matt Carasidi's rehabbing with AAA right now. And honestly, he's been pretty good for this team for what he was called into action to do. But the question is, do you really need to bring him back when you could give some young guys a shot? It's a tough call. There's not a whole lot of other pitchers right now in Albuquerque that I would consider ready to go unless you want to really put some interesting eyes on guys like Dugan Darnell or Victor Vodnik, who we received at the trade deadline. Dugan Darnell's been doing pretty solid in AAA. Vodnik's only been there for a little bit. But those are definitely options.
Yeah, I would see Victor Vodnik maybe getting that look because the organization's so high on him that I feel like he would get a shot some point in September. Because you can have Chase Anderson and like Matt Carasidi come back up, prove that they're healthy. No, more or less to like the rest of baseball. Like, hey, we come back and we've pitched and we're healthy and ready to go heading into free agency. No, they'll do right by those guys. You still have to do right by some of those guys like that coming off of injuries. We're not going to just kick you to the curb as soon as this rehab assignment. The Rockies really don't do that. They'd give them a shot, maybe a start for Chase Anderson. Shows, hey, I'm still healthy. I can still pitch. And then, okay, we appreciate you, but we got to give other guys a look here in the starting rotation. Carl Kaufman, we're going to put him back in the rotation, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But, I think Victor Vodnik would get a look. Dugan Darnell would be an intriguing one.
Oh, I would be so happy to see Dugan make his debut.
But pitching-wise, it's kind of thin at the AAA level, and there aren't necessarily any guys down in AA that you'd want to expose at this point. You'd want to give them that look in spring training, maybe move them up to AAA at the time. But position players, it's kind of up in the air. I feel Sean Bouchard's going to get that recall. He just seems natural at this point now that he's playing and everything. But kind of up in the air too with position players of, well, who would you bring back up? Do you bring up another catcher so Brian Serven comes back? Or do you kind of look around for other guys, Daniel Montano or Jimmy Herron, Winton Bernard for some reason gets called back up?
I'd love to see Aaron Shunk.
Yeah, Shunky.
Aaron Shunk has had a fantastic season with AAA Albuquerque. I think he's definitely deserving of getting an extended look over the last month or so of the season. Shunk is hitting 290, 343, 484 with 13 home runs, 20 doubles, and 6 triples. And he even has a couple games where he has multiple triples in a single game, which is awesome. I would love to see him get a call up. You could
Coco Montez,
Willie McIver, also an option.
Yeah. And some of these guys, because the team's already so young, some of these guys you probably wouldn't see get that much of extended looks, but getting about the exposure and, dipping their feet at the big league level and kind of learn to fly on airplanes, learn that process of being with the big league team for some of those guys, and just get exposure to it and then getting them into games. So there's options. Is there any kind of like far-fetched one that you would like? Kind of like the Ezekiel Tovar comes up in the final week of the season type of thing.
That's a tough one. So non-top prospect, I would say somebody like Jimmy Herron, who has had really quietly just a really strong season with AAA Albuquerque. Nobody really talks about him because he's not a top prospect, and he's been around for a little bit. He's 27 years old. He was originally drafted by the Cubs back in 2018 out of Duke, but he's hitting 302, 392, 507 this season with 15 home runs, 4 triples and 22 doubles, 63 runs batted in. And this is not a guy who was specifically really known as a power hitter earlier in his career, but he's getting good power numbers, getting good contact numbers, getting good on base numbers. And he's a really, really solid defensive outfielder as well. I would be very happy to see him get a chance. I think that would be a lot of fun. Guys who would surprise me, that is tough because you want to look at maybe some guys who are on, say, the Hartford Yard Goats, who we just want to throw it at the wall and see what sticks. If you really want to get crazy, I would say potentially Grant Levine.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really, really want to get crazy, let's get Mike Honcho or Sterling Thompson up here.
I don't know if they will quite bit, but one for me.
Absolutely not. But man, it would be crazy.
Yeah. Is Adele Amador. Just got back from injury. He's been kind of following the Ezekiel Tovar path this season. He just got promoted to Double-A Hartford. So he's playing there now, coming off the injury to his hand. But maybe if it's kind of tough because he hasn't played with the Hartford that much at all. Yeah. He's just barely hasn't played there in Hartford yet. So he's kind of further back on the path than Tovar was because Tovar started the season in Double-A, whereas he's been down in Spokane and Fresno, or down in Spokane this season. But he would be one if he really shows it down in Double-A in this short span. Maybe he gets a look. They're at like the very last week of the season, kind of like Tovar did. And then they're like, hey, we're going to trade Brendan Rodgers and Amador, you're our second baseman type of thing. That would be nuts. But he would be my far-fetched one of like, maybe Amador just kind of gets that quick call up to the big leagues. But yeah, Jordan Beck would be a incredible one because I think he's getting on that cusp.
Or Yanquiel Fernandez.
Yeah.
Ooh, that would be some spicy late season baseball. That'll get some butts and seats.
Chase Dollander. We'll pull an Angels and call up our first round pick of 2023.
There's always murmurings if that happens. Like, oh, they're going to call up Paul Skeens at the end of the season.
Chase Dollander hasn't even pitched yet since being drafted.
And I don't think he will this season. I think their focus is getting him rested, and maybe because Arizona Complex League is, I believe, over soon, if not already. I will say one guy who I think deserves more of a viewing at the big league level than we've given him is Cole Tucker.
Yeah.
Cole Tucker has really quietly been very good for the Albuquerque Isotopes. Delightful human being. Really got the short end of the stick in terms of his brief call up here.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we're not going to keep him around next year, that dude deserves to showcase his stuff on why he belongs in a big league roster somewhere else next year. Yeah.
And if you don't want to mess around with calling up prospects, like some of these prospects, because they're just not really ready. Then, you make room. Harold Castro off the roster. Cole Tucker takes his place. You can still kind of have that veteran on there who's helpful and still kind of getting his licks in, his reps in, while you're not starting the clock on any prospects that you're not really ready or sold on to start right now. Because, like we said, the roster's already kind of filled with the young group of staples at the moment. So you wouldn't want to start the clock on a guy and then just kind of not use him. Because month of September is to get guys playing time that are ready for that next step kind of thing. So, and we're already kind of been doing that since July.
Yeah. And, that is credit where it's due to this team, where they have given, even though he's not hitting particularly well, they are regularly giving Brenton Doyle starts because his outfield defense is just so outstanding. And if Doyle can get his bat to where it needs to be, of just even like an average hitter, that dude's got basically a lifetime starting job in Major League Baseball. Nolan Jones getting plenty of playing time. Ezekiel Tovar started basically every game this season. Where if I am the Rockies, there are 3 guys that you can DFA from this team right now, position player wise. And that's Profar, Castro, and Austin Wynns, unfortunately. And then you can clear at least 2 additional spots for that September roster expansion.
Yeah. Stuff to be done. It's just a matter of if they do it at all. But Evan, I think that's going to bring into close here of this edition of Affected by Altitude. Season's winding down, so not many of these in-season episodes left as we get closer and closer to the off-season, and that's where the real fun begins of nothing happening as we stare at the clock. But Evan, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on the Twixler. You can find me on Twitter at Evan_Lang27. I would love to hear from you. You can also find me on Blue Sky at evanlang27.bsky.social. And then hit me up on purplerow.com with my Thursday rock piles and occasionally Monday rock piles, apparently, because I did a Monday one this week. That was a lot of fun. And just reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. You can hit us up on at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. And you can also find us over on Fans First Sports Network. You can type that in as ffsn.app. Skyler, how about you? Where can we find chat?
You can find me over on X.
No.
At sideline_crowd, as always, Wednesday Rock Piles. You can also always be sure to check us out at fansfirstsports.com with articles and stuff, trying to do more writing over there on Fans First because, again, they are in charge of us here. And then you can find me on the other stuff, but we'll just focus on the X right now and the Twitters. Also, if you missed it, you can check out the interview I did with Stephen Rice, the Fresno Grizzlies play-by-play announcer. I don't know if we'll stick it on to the end of this episode, or we'll just kind of link it in the article post. Probably would be best since that's short, since this won't make this like a 2-hour episode or something. But it was a really fun conversation with him. Fortunately, Evan couldn't make it, but it was still a good conversation talking about Skyler Messenger, a bunch of these prospects, Jordan Beck, Sterling Thompson, Cole Carrick, Kyle Karros, Michael Persecki, tons of guys down there in Fresno. A fun group. Steven's a good guy. Very excited about calling those games and stuff. And it was a fun conversation. Good insights about some of those prospects, the ground floor of the Rockies system. You can go ahead and go check that out on our podcast feeds of Rocky Mountain Rooftop. You can find that on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us Rocky Mountain Rooftop, where you can also find Every Rocky Ever. We'll have a new episode coming out this coming week, or this coming Wednesday or Thursday, whenever I record it and post it. But this coming week, we'll have a new episode. And then, I think I covered it all.
Do you want to give us a preview of who you are talking about on Every Rocky Ever this week?
I wish I knew. At time of recording, I literally do not know who we're talking about. I have to get to my brother about that.
It's going to be Brooks Kieschnick, everybody. Brooks Kieschnick on Every Rocky Ever.
No, maybe him, among others. We don't know. It can be any of 700 Rockies to have ever put on a uniform.
And then huge thank you to Steven for doing that interview with Skyler. Like Skyler said, awesome guy. Love the Fresno Grizzlies. Love their team out there. Yeah.
And again, before we go, if you are wanting tickets to a NFL Week 1 game of your choice, Go to contest.fansfirstsports.com, fill out the appropriate information there, and you will be registered to win a four tickets to any Week 1 NFL game. That is a value of around $5,000, which is insane that you're able to get that. And all you have to do is sign up, and you can register for that and go to an NFL game. Contest ends September 4th, so be sure to enter that before time is out.
One last thing that I just thought about that I wanted to say, we didn't get a chance to say it last week, is rest in peace to Alex Cole, the first ever Colorado Rockies starting center fielder who started in center field on opening day in 1993. Alex Cole passed away last week of undisclosed causes at the age of 58. We just want to extend our thoughts out there to his friends and family. Not widely talked about, but a key member of the Colorado Rockies legacy, batting second in the lineup behind Eric Young, where didn't get a chance to say this last week, so I just wanted a chance to get it out there today. And I know it's a sad note to end on, but it's important to remember where we came from as the Colorado Rockies. Alex Cole with his big plastic rec specs, which, man, the 90s and recreational spectacles were a heck of a thing.
Absolutely. Before my time, though. But that'll do it here on Affected by Altitude. As always, thank you for joining with us. And until next time, I'm Skyler. That's Evan. Hit him with it.
Nice on.
Farewell!
Thanks, everybody.
This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.